Chapter 1. Mr. Gates, I quit. 2 weeks before Christmas, 1999, Lee Hood appeared to have it all. A loving family, money, fame, power. He counted Bill Gates, one of the world's richest men, as a friend and supporter. 8 years earlier, Gates gave the University of Washington $12 million to lure the star biologist from Caltech in what the Wall Street Journal called a major coup. Hood's assignment? Build a first-of-its-kind research department at the intersection of biology, computer science, and medicine. Even at 61, the former quarterback of an undefeated high school football team could still do 100 push-ups in a row. He ran at least 3 miles a day. He climbed mountains. He traveled the world to give scientific talks to rapt audiences. He slept just 4 to 5 hours a night. Apart from indulging in a luxurious, art-filled mansion along Lake Washington, he cared little for the finer things in life, sporting a cheap plastic wristwatch and driving an old Toyota Camry. He still had the same wonder and enthusiasm for science he had as a boy. Yet here, at the turn of the millennium, Hood was miserable. Just as his once controversial vision for big science was becoming a reality through the Human Genome Project, he didn't feel like a winner. He felt suffocated. He had a new vision. A more far-sighted and expansive one that he insisted would revolutionize healthcare. He felt the university bureaucrats who were in charge couldn't see the vision and kept getting in his way. It was time for Hood to have a difficult conversation with his biggest supporter. On a typically dark and gray December day in Seattle, Hood climbed into his dinged-up Camry and drove across the Highway 520 floating bridge over Lake Washington to meet Gates, the billionaire CEO of Microsoft. Hood came to say he had resigned his Gates-funded professorship at the UW. He felt he had no choice but to start a new institute, free from university red tape. It was the only way to fulfill his dream for biology in the 21st century. Gates was well aware of Hood's record of achievements and its catalytic potential for medicine. Hood led the team at Caltech that invented 4 research instrument prototypes in the 1980s, including the first automated DNA sequencer. The improved machines that followed made the Human Genome Project possible and transformed biology into more of a data-driven quantitative science. Researchers no longer had to spend several years, an entire graduate student's career, just to determine the sequence of a single gene. With fast automated sequencing tools, a new generation of biologists could think broadly about the billions of units of DNA. The sequences were obviously important, as they held the instructions to make proteins that do the work within cells. Thousands of labs around the world, at research institutions, diagnostic companies, and drug makers, used the progeny of Hood's prototype instruments as everyday workhorses. George Rothman, the founding CEO at Amgen, biotech's first big success story, once said Hood accelerated the whole field of biotechnology by a number of years. Hood had an unusually clear and far-reaching view for how biologists could fully exploit the new instruments. His enthusiasm inspired many bright scientists to devote themselves to his vision and to do their best work. Now, at the start of the 21st century, Hood believed biology was ready for more ambitious goals. He believed traditional reductionism, looking at one gene at a time, was outdated small science. The time was right, he argued, for scientists to look at hundreds or thousands of genes and proteins together in the complex symphony that makes up a whole human organism with trillions of cells. Biology, like physics, had an opportunity to become big science, fueled by big money, big teams, and big goals. The way to tackle such complexity, Hood said, was through what he called systems biology. It was a new twist on an old idea that involved bringing scientists together from biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, and computer science. He would break every rule and custom of academia, if necessary, to make it happen. That was his way. But it wasn't going to happen at the University of Washington. Abruptly, he quit. On that gloomy day in December 1999, Hood wanted to break the news to Gates in person. Gates was curious to hear what was so important that it couldn't wait. The men sat down in a couple of comfortable chairs in Gates's office in Building 8 at the Microsoft campus in Redmond. Hood got right to the point. He'd resigned his endowed Gates professorship at UW because the bureaucracy of a public institution would never be flexible enough to let him achieve his goals for multidisciplinary systems biology. Hardly stopping for breath, Hood barreled through his long list of grievances with administrators who didn't share his vision. He rhapsodized about the opportunity for systems biology. The billionaire listened for a solid 15 to 20 minutes. When Gates asked whether the dispute could be resolved some other way, Hood said that he had tried for 3 years to set up such an institute within the university. Starting his own institute was the only way.